teach in the School of Law in UL, and my presentation today is on a case study of the School of Law Alumni Mentoring Programme. So just by way of introduction, what I'm going to cover in the paper, I'm going to look at why the Alumni Mentoring Programme was set up. I'm going to talk about why we have involvement of alumni, an issue around logistics and geography, then a question around who takes part, then pivoting to COVID-19 and how that impacted the programme, and then what did students want from the programme themselves. So this is a picture actually from the last day we were on campus. So this was in March 2020. So these were my students that were on the first iteration of the program that started in 2019. So it started in 2019, September, and then it continued in person until March 2020. So these are just some of the mentors with some of their students. And I suppose it just shows the difference in that the first version of the program was in person in the law school, and the mentors all came and visited their students in person, whereas then, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes, we then had to move online for the second iteration of the program, which was 2020-2021. And again, I suppose in terms of, say, the mentors that are in this picture, you know, you've mentors there from leading Limerick law firms, but also as well from leading Dublin law firms. So we were very lucky in that our mentors, even though there was obviously travel involved and a very quick turnaround, often our mentors would have come down and it would have been a 5-hour round trip on the train from Dublin to maybe just meet with their students for an hour, hour and a half. So it was great to have that involvement. So then just to talk about the when and the why. So the program started in 2019. And as I said, the original version was in person, and then we moved online for the second iteration of the program. I suppose the when and why question is important. In 2019, there was a discussion in the law school about how alumni would like to be more involved with the students. And they really wanted to have more engagement with the students and not just kind of, you know, as law firms maybe sponsor scholarships or sponsor the MOOC courtrooms as they have been doing for the last number of years. They wanted to have more kind of engagement with the students. So it meant then that we had to think about, well, how could we foster that engagement? Also as well then, we would have had course boards with our different graduating cohorts of students in Law Plus, in Law and Accounting, and in Criminal Justice, and the graduate entry students. And they would have all talked about how they would have liked more opportunities to learn from those who went ahead of them and to learn about how they progressed their careers, and also as well, you know, how they navigated securing traineeships, and also as well, I suppose they talked about issues such as, and I have them highlighted here on the slide, things like unpaid internships, which would be a thing that happens in law in Ireland. Now, many of the larger firms do offer a small stipend, but largely smaller law firms don't offer paid internships. So again, it would have been difficult for many of our students based on geography to be able to take up internships where a lot of the large firms would be in Dublin because of having to travel and also having to pay rent there. And if you didn't have a family member there, it was, you know, exorbitantly expensive to rent for a short number of months in the summer maybe. Also as well, the students were looking for guidance on career development, you know, how to move from being a trainee to securing a permanent position, moving from associate to moving to be a partner. Also as well, students were looking for references. So they were looking for engagement with alumni in those larger law firms, for example, who would be able to act as referees for them in traineeship applications. Also as well, the other thing that was identified by the students is that it's very challenging to become a barrister in Ireland. And you have to do an unpaid period of training with a senior barrister, and that's called deviling. And again, a large percentage of trainee barristers, around 40% in the most recent study, they secured that deviling contract with somebody that they knew, so a personal relationship. So again, a lot of our students would have been concerned that they didn't have that personal relationship, and therefore it would be difficult for them maybe to qualify as a barrister. So that's the when and the why of why the programme was set up. I suppose the other question people are probably wondering is, why did you go with Alumni Mentors? I suppose it was really important for us because the alumni wanted to get involved, but also as well, we would have a very strong and engaged alumni in the law school in UL. And again, they like to get involved in moot court competitions, negotiation competitions, acting as judges. They're very involved in the cooperative education placements. They also offer sponsorships for scholarships, and also as well for traineeships and internships, etc. So in terms of how to choose what mentors we would have, so I myself created the program, and I've run the program for the last 2 years. And when I was first creating the program in 2019, I suppose a key thing that I wanted to focus on was what the students wanted themselves. So I didn't want to create a program that kind of students wouldn't, I suppose, get anything from, or wasn't suited to their needs. So I chose to go with alumni who were at a particular stage of their career. So I went with people who were kind of in the mid stage of their career. Again, the reason for that was because I wanted people who were a bit further along in their career and were able to look back and I suppose talk about how they had navigated a few career moves, maybe had moved careers, or maybe as well how they had progressed and got promoted in their career. So it was important to kind of, match the particular needs of the students with the alumni mentors. I suppose as well, I also was cognizant of the fact that I needed to be clear with mentors about the level of commitment involved, because again, they're all very busy people with full-time jobs and family and caring commitments. So it was important as well to be very clear from the start about the level of commitment. Again, you might say, why did the alumni want to get involved? Being particularly honest, there was 2 reasons. One was, very altruistic in that they wanted to help students and they wanted to help them to get on and to further their careers. The second, which is very fair, is that many of the mentors would come from law firms and they're looking for the best students that they can get for traineeships. So therefore, they wanted to establish a relationship with our 4th years and our graduate entry students who were close to graduation to make sure that, they were presenting to the best students possible who might apply for traineeships in their firms. In terms then of the students, so again, the first program was advertised to 4th year students for the pilot in 2019, and then I extended this to the graduate entry students in 2020. There's 40 students on the program. I advertised it in the September. It's not compulsory. Students choose themselves to be part of the program. In terms of the level of participation, so students are put into small groups of around 3 students, and then they're assigned to a mentor. Again, I don't specifically match students with, they're not given a preference form because it would be very difficult for me to match everyone to a particular mentor. But I do try to take into account if they have said they particularly like to learn from a commercial solicitor, I will try and match them with that person. They have group meetings, but then they also have individual meetings, emails, or phone calls with their mentor as well. So there's a mixture there in terms of learning from both the fellow students in their little group for support, but also as well individual mentoring also. The other thing that was really important, I should say, is that I did a pre-program survey, and the reason for that is I wanted to check what students actually wanted. So in the pre-program survey, it was only 6 questions. It only took about 5 minutes to fill out. And what I was particularly looking at this year was things like, one of the questions focused on internet connectivity. Because we were moving online, I wanted to know that students would be able to access either the live meetings with mentors or pre-recorded workshops or talks. So again, it was important to assess internet connectivity. Also, as well, students talked about how they wanted me as the coordinator to go to each of the group meetings, to take notes, and then to feed back to the student cohort as a group so that they would learn about what other mentors' advice had been, so that they wouldn't just learn from their own mentors. So that was kind of a key thing that they wanted. In terms as well of what careers they wanted to learn from, if I had not done the pre-program survey, I would have thought students want to learn about 20 or 30 different careers. 95% of students who took part in the survey wanted to be a solicitor and wanted to learn how that was. So I would have taken it before that. I would have thought, oh, they want to go down loads of different career paths. But listening to the survey results, they overwhelmingly wanted to learn about being a solicitor, being a barrister, and then after that, the other careers were, say, being an academic, the NGO sector, and the civil service. So those were very much the areas that I focused on then in selecting mentors and matching the students. Just a note then about COVID-19 and how that impacted things. We obviously had to move online, and that was a significant change because the mentors, as I said, had been really generous with their time. 100% of the mentors had travelled to Limerick to meet with their students in person in 2019-2020. So we moved online last September. I created a Solace site. One of our adjunct professors in the law school, Jeffrey Shannon, is...
Sorry, Nora, the 10 minutes have gone.
Perfect, thank you. So Jeffrey Shannon is an adjunct in the law school, and he works in the Law Society of Ireland. So Professor Shannon and his colleagues in the Law Society actually created a specific video for me to put up for the students to learn about the new route to being a solicitor and how the exams would work and changes to the training scheme, because it was something that had come up in the survey that students wanted to know about the new scheme for training as a solicitor. Also as well, responding to the survey, I had a range of guest speakers, but they were both a mixture of live and pre-recorded. So some evenings we would have live speakers and students would pop in with a question in the chat box, or if their internet was good enough, they'd pop on their video and ask a question. Other students then were more keen for pre-records, and any of the live talks as well, I would have recorded those and put them on the site. Another thing that came up in the survey was students wanted a CV workshop. How that worked is that I created an assignments tool on Solace, and then they uploaded their CVs and they got individual feedback on their CVs. Again, another identified need was they wanted to learn about master's programs. They wanted to learn about how to write a personal statement. So that was another workshop that I held. And then as well, aside from having their mentor who was kind of at mid-stage of their career, we also did a workshop with younger mentors who were trainee solicitors and trainee barristers, so that they could learn practical tips about how to study for, say, the entrance exams for the Law Society and for King's Inns to be a barrister. And that was a really practical workshop where they learned kind of tips and tricks of how to study for those exams. The other interesting thing as well is those trainee solicitors and barristers had been on the original version of my pilot of the programme in 2019, so it was nice to bring them back in 2020 to show the students how they had gotten on. Also, COVID-19, as previous speakers have said, it did allow for more engagement with those that were not based in Limerick. Finally then, just to say some of the benefits and challenges, some of these won't be earth-shattering. There was a time commitment. I ran the programme on my own both years, and it was a bit of a passion project, so obviously I enjoyed it. I enjoy the mentoring side of working with students. There was a lot of time management. I suppose things changed between being on campus in person versus being online, having to set up MS Teams meetings, etc., making sure that people were able to log in. I suppose a really important thing was managing expectations, both for the alumni in terms of how much they would need to do from the start. I was really clear about setting that out, but also as well managing the expectation of students. Consistency was also important, meeting regularly with the students, finding times that worked for them. And also as well, not just bombarding them with information in 2 or 3 weeks and then disappearing and never speaking to them again. Variety was important. They liked the mix of live and pre-recorded and the mixture of speakers and the workshops and the talks, etc. It was really important to respond to identified needs. The needs of this year's cohort were different to last year's cohort. So if anyone is thinking about doing this in the future, I think it's really important to speak to your students before you go doing it. Important to scaffold things, be really clear about where students can find things and how they can reach out if they need help. Relationships is really important. Keeping a good relationship with the alumni is important for a variety of reasons, but particularly because they sponsor a lot of things in the law school. And it sounds very capitalist, but just to be honest, you need to be careful about your relationships and making sure they stay positive. And then lastly, to say, it's been really good for the students because they were able to build networks. It increased their confidence, and also as well, when they were speaking with the mentors, meeting them in person or even online, they would get dressed up. They would bring their CVs. Their public speaking got better over time. So I do think it was a really beneficial program, and I'm currently doing a post-course survey with the students at the moment. So hopefully I'll have the data back from that soon. So thank you all for listening today.
Norah.
And for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we can stop recording that one. And we have